Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 17 of The Boot Report. In today's episode, we have an unbelievable comparison between two very, very fantastic leather boots. We're going to talk about why leather is leaving the market and, of course, answer all of your questions. So let's start with section one, the weekly news. I want to take a quick moment to acknowledge and to empathize with the people who are close to Diogo Jota. Obviously, super, super tragic news that he passed away in a car crash. Most Instagram accounts that had anything to do or have anything to do with football have been posting about it. So if you didn't know, let me be the bearer of bad news. Incredible player, very, very fun to watch, and obviously a very young family as well, just had been married. So incredibly, incredibly sad news. I don't want that to sort of be the start of the podcast in terms of it being a downer for the day, but it is a very, very large piece of news that was just a complete freak accident. Nobody really knows any of the details other than it was a car accident somewhere in Spain. So yeah. All right, let's move on to latest colorway drops. So I brought out the ASICS DS Lite X-Fly 5 because the brand new DS Lite X-Fly 6 just came out. This is, of course, complementing the X-Fly Pro 3 and the Acros 3 in the ASICS Japan or ASICS Football Japan lineup, which is absolutely fantastic. And we'll talk about this a little bit. They don't have K-leather anymore, which we knew about beforehand. I've talked to you guys about this before as well. They were gonna move away from K-leather to most likely silky wrap, which is the same material on the upper and forefoot of the DS Lite X-Fly Pro 3. Now, the X-Fly Pro 3, of course, is a absolutely wonderful football boot. I love those. I think they are excellent. The DS Lite X-Fly 5, though, is a special boot for me. I wore it during my 23 season with Flower City. Absolutely amazing. I'm sure the X-Fly 6 is going to be fantastic as well, but it is moving away from K-leather, which is really disappointing. That being said, if you are somebody who liked the X-Fly 5, the X-Fly 5 is still on sale, so you can go and grab a pair somewhere like Tokyo Football, or if you live in Asia, obviously go to those. To be honest, this is a boot that I think actually might benefit from the silky wrap in some ways. Obviously, the touch on the ball is going to be just slightly different in the forefoot area, but realistically, this isn't a whole lot of leather. If you look at like where the leather starts, that's almost only about a third of the upper. So the fact that these boots are already so fantastic, and then they're moving to a synthetic material like silky wrap that is so incredibly amazing. Honestly, for a boot like this, I'm not really mad about it. Would I have been bummed if it was like the C3, which is their all leather boot? Yeah. And I'm sure they're going to be moving that direction very, very soon with either the new version of the C3 or a C4 or something like that, whatever they end up calling it. But again, these are like Japan exclusive type football boots, so a lot of you may not be able to even access these. So I realize it's a little bit out of touch, but it is a boot, particularly the DS Lite X-Fly 5 and then now the X-Fly 6, that'll be available pretty much anywhere if you shop at places like Tokyo Football. They're not sponsoring today's video, obviously, but I love doing business with them and they're awesome and they stock all really cool stuff as well. We also got the Radiant Blaze pack from Adidas, which I leaked, it would have been probably 2 or 3 months ago now. And there's it's sort of another Buzz Lightyear-ish colorway with the purple and Volt F50 line, which we'll talk about in a sec, with the F50 Plus, the white, green, black Pred, which looks pretty good. It looks almost like they dipped a Pred or they played on really freshly cut grass with a white and black Pred, and the bottom of the boot is kind of this electric green color, almost like a grass stain. So it looks okay. It's not my favorite, but yeah, it looks all right. And then the black and green Copa 3, which actually looks pretty clean. The black and Volt or black and electric green or whatever looks pretty nice. Now on the terms or on the F50 topic, so the F50 Plus now has a different upper and is laced instead of laceless, while still maintaining the Light Strike Pro, which is obviously a different version of I believe they call it just the Plus version of that sole plate. So it's the Sprint Frame 360 Plus sole plate, I think it's called. And so that has remained the same. It looks like the heel area has remained mostly the same. And then they've changed the upper ever so slightly to what looks like a much thinner material. And then they've added laces, and it's looks fantastic. Standard U-throat tongue, or maybe it has the compression fit tunnel system. I can't remember. But anyway, I will hopefully be getting those in at some point very, very soon and doing a review. I do think the Light Strike Pro is a really cool idea. I like the implementation of it, and it's a very unique sensation underfoot, similar to the Ultra 5 Carbon and things like that, that maybe aren't super useful necessarily, or maybe even desired by a lot of pros and high-level football players, high-level football players. But at the same time, it's like they needed a change, right? They needed something that was going to be laced to get the most bang for your buck, and it really kind of airs back to Speed Portal Plus that was razor thin. I actually kind of liked those boots, even though they weren't really my style. I thought they were really lightweight, super thin, great responsiveness on the sole plate, etc. Although they took out carbon and that was annoying, but whatever. Then we also got the Cause and Effect pack, which is New Balance. We'll talk about the Tekela in just a minute. This is obviously from the original launch colorway, but the New Balance is just absolutely crushing right now. I think this pack looks, it's not all that exciting, but it's really clean looking. They've got a beautiful royal blue, like this is a chapstick, but it's like super royal. It's like this color. It's like royal blue Tekela, which looks really nice. The red orange kind of flare red almost colorway of the Furon looks really nice. And then there's the 442 is sort of a navy color, which is fine. The navy boots don't really do it for me all that much. The only kind of navy, or maybe midnight blue, if you want to call it that, was the original DNA. And that one was very beautiful and very clean, but there's a reason I don't have that one anymore, and I have the white and silver one, which is the same generation as that one. I just don't, navy boots just don't do it for me that much. But it's fine. Like I don't have any gripes with it. It's not like ugly. It's not objectively ugly. This whole pack looks super clean. And again, as I've said in many times, that's what happens when you put a really nice solid color with white and black accents. And that's all you need, because that's what players want. And that was, like we talked about in the last episode, 16 or 15 maybe, which is why the Mizuno pack was so popular. So that's Cause and Effect pack, Radiant Blaze. Both of those and Fear Nothing from Nike are going to be your tournament pack, basically. And then I would expect to see some more stuff come out later in the tournament, like in the knockout stages or even the semis or finals. And then we'll see, obviously, a new season pack that comes out. Now, new in the shop. This is where I want to get to the Tekela. So now I have the Tekela. I have been able to wear it, and that video will be coming out very soon. This is a beautiful football boot. I got to tell you what, it's very, very good. And we'll talk about that in the future performance breakdown section. But I did want to show it to you. We'll throw it under the overhead camera really quick for you guys. But it's a really volty, very, very bright color with the orange accents. I've said this in a couple videos. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Volt football boots. I like them. They're fine. They're bright, but they're nice for launch colorways. It's like the original Magista Obra was that way. But in general, Volt boots just don't do it for me. If you noticed over the course of the last maybe year and a half, the identical colorway to this, but the Mizuno models that came out, I actually have both of them behind this boot wall because I've since replaced the beta and the non-beta model for something that I actually really like. The beta that I went for was the, it's like right behind my head, but it's the all white with the royal blue accent marks, and then the non-beta is the ruby red edition. And I just think those colors look a lot better. Volt tends to look good on some boots, but I just, bright yellow doesn't really do it for me. Again, this is a launch colorway. This is what I had access to, and this is what I'm going to be reviewing. And then eventually, once I break these in and do a whole, series of videos on it and stuff, that's when I'll probably let this one go and either purchase or get a pair in from New Balance that's a color that I really like to throw in the boot wall or something like that. That's usually how I operate when it comes to colorways. The next boot that I have to show you has to be shown under the overhead camera, and I've got to move all of these boots that I have for example, because this pair of football boots comes in a, believe it or not, a wooden box. So this is the Lanzera Professionale. You like my little accent there? Professionale. That's probably really bad. But anyway, you open it up. The boots are I don't really want to do a whole unboxing for you guys right now, but we're going to just kind of let's see if I can pull these out. But you get the string bag and everything there. And then, oh, come on, please. There you go. You can kind of see the boots. So they're an all leather, made in Italy, pair of football boots. Very, very small brand. Excellent, excellent work on the packaging, because this is I've never seen a wooden box that comes with a pair of football boots. I've seen it for sneakers and stuff before, but man, that is very heavy, but also really, really cool. So that will be coming very soon, hopefully, as well. When I say very soon, usually I mean like a month, which is kind of funny because a lot of people have been asking me about the Phantom 6s and the Tekelas and all this other stuff. And I'm like, guys, I have a lot of stuff to do, and I'm a one-man show. I don't have a film crew going around me. And obviously Kelvin is a beautiful human and my editor, but like he and I can only produce so much, whereas most channels either don't do the type of stuff that I do in terms of filming. They're not nearly as complicated, which is great. Or they have, like Unisport or soccer.com or whatever, have like a team behind them. So they've got like 2 editors and they've got 2 film people and a film crew and blah, 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 blah. So complicated, which is great, but it's just a different way of doing things. So thank you for your patience. Section 2, boot talk. We are going to get into straight away this amazing comparison between the Nike Tiempo Legend 9, the last K-Leather Tiempo, and the Copa Pure 3, which obviously shares a lot of resemblance to this boot. Both have knit tongues, both have leather uppers, for the most part. Both have suede heel liners, both have conical studs for the most part. So let's jump straight into it. So in terms of now tech really quick. So Copa Pure 3, obviously I went over it just about a second ago. Copa Pure 3 has a prime knit tongue through the lacing area, which is fantastic in my opinion. It's got the not hybrid touch upper. It's got the essentially calfskin leather in the forefoot and the synthetic in the midfoot. And they call this fusion skin. So it's sort of a fusion between these 2 materials. And it's really impressive how you can't kind of tell where the leather stops and where the synthetic begins until you get like way back here in the back of the football boot, like the rear third or the rear quarter. Suede heel liner with some padding, quite a narrow heel as well, which is really nice. And then standard lacing system through there. And then a mostly conical stud pattern that's called the Comfort Frame from Adidas, which I'm imagining they'll use on the next Copa generation, Copa 4 or whatever they call the next one, because it's really good. It's very, very solid, feels good under feet. Nothing, there's no BS about it, which is cool. And then in terms of the Tiempo Legend 9, the Tiempo Legend 9 is a fantastic pair of leather football boots as well. It's all K-leather essentially from this point all the way around, minus the massive, massive synthetic Nike swoosh, which has been stitched into the leather material. You got a suede heel liner, a knit, but this is a little bit different of a knit. This is more of like a mesh knit as opposed to like what we think about as sort of a sock knit. It's slightly different, and they've also got this little ridge on the end of it that sits up against your ankle. And then they have the stud pattern that is very, very highly regarded among not only Tiempo enthusiasts, but I think boot enthusiasts as well. It's just very, very excellent. I don't know why the modern Tiempo switched, although to be fair, the modern Tiempo has a pretty decent sole plate. I don't love it, but it's not the upper, put it that way. Okay, we're gonna evaluate sole plate, upper, heel, comfort, performance, design. I don't know how many fingers I'm holding up now. Design, lace area, X factor, per usual. The sole plate, ladies and gentlemen, this one is going to be a pretty close one, to be honest. I was pretty surprised when I tried the Copa Pure 3 when it first released of how good this new comfort frame sole plate is. And I really don't mind the studs here in sort of the forefoot area. I think they actually feel really nice on field, and there's no stud pressure under any of those studs, which is pretty impressive given the fact that there aren't as many studs as maybe you'd see in another pair of football boots that has basically you're going to sink into the ground regardless of what area of the foot is touching the ground. So that's what happens when you have less studs. You get more stud pressure because there's particular points that are the only areas where the ground has to contact your foot, if that makes sense, through the stud. So very, very impressive. However, I'm going to give the sole plate award for this comparison to the Tiempo Legend 9. I just think that this sole plate, the stiffness through the midfoot is absolutely world class. Very, very good pivot point as well, right where it needs to be for the way that this boot operates from a spring perspective. And this sole plate just feels good. It's not super fancy, but man, does it perform well. So sole plate has to go to the Tiempo for me. The upper is going to be, I think, a mixed bag for some people, because I think a lot of people are going to find the Copa actually has a slightly softer upper just from like a touch perspective. It's very, the leather treatment, or I should say the fusion skin treatment, is very nice. So they've done a good job at making this feel a lot like a really, really premium football boot, even though basically from here back isn't leather. Whereas the leather on the Tiempo is much more what we think about when we think about a K-leather football boot. It's got a little bit of density to it, some nice padding, and it's super soft and premium, but it's not as like, whoa, what the hell is that, with the Copa. However, I'm giving it to the Tiempo because I think an all K-leather, when you have two silos like this that have been the Copa line and the Tiempo line that have been sort of in competition for so long, having a K-leather football boot, I think, wins out basically regardless in terms of the upper material. Then we move on to the heel. This is also going to be, I think, a mixed bag for some people. Some people are going to find that you can see here with the width of the heels, the heel on the Tiempo is built for kind of everybody. It's sort of a much more general shape. There is padding, but it's kind of all around and goes from top to bottom. So regardless of where you are in this heel area, there's a little more padding on the top to sort of lock that heel in, but it's really minimal compared to what's on the very bottom of this heel cup. In comparison, the Copa has a much more narrow heel area. I mean, that's pretty obvious from the overhead camera, but then they have pads that are in very particular locations, sort of in this area here of the boot on either both the lateral and the medial sides. And so for those of you who have, but here's the thing actually first before I say that, the thing about this heel area is the material that they've used isn't the type of suede that you would think about when you think about the grippy elements. We talked about the X-Fly 5 before. This is a suede material that kind of sticks to your sock a little bit. And so as it gets wet and as it gets sweaty, you're going to have basically zero heel slippage, regardless of whether you're wearing grip elements or not, because of that suede heel. And the unfortunate part about the Copa is that they put a suede that feels more like velvet than it does suede, which is kind of weird. I don't know why they decided to do that, but I mean, you Adidas, but it's just one of those things that I think isn't, it was just a material oversight that I think maybe could have used a little bit more testing. So I'm actually going to give the heel area to the Tiempo, because despite the shape of the Copa being a little bit more anatomical, they just kind of screwed up on this black material here, because it feels way too slippery. It's like as it gets wet, it actually gets more and more slick, as opposed to the Tiempo, which just kind of fits pretty much everybody and just locks your foot in. It's really, really nice. So that's going to be for the heel area. Tiempo wins out yet again. Now, in terms of comfort, this is very much going to be kind of a personal preference. I think that the Tiempo has a more anatomical shape, particularly here in the toe box area. It goes a little bit wider here, whereas the Copa is a little bit more pointed. That being said, the comfort that you get out of this fusion skin upper straight out of the box is really, really good. I would say that the Copa actually breaks in for me a little bit better than the Tiempo Legend 9, which is remarkable because the Tiempo is actually a fantastic football boot. But I always feel like with the Tiempo, and I wore the black with the electric blue colorway, which I'm really annoyed that I sold because I really loved that color. But obviously this is my favorite. So but it always had a part of this boot that in the backside where the Nike swoosh is, it always gave me a little bit of pinching, despite having I'd say probably 50 to 100. I know that's a big window. It was probably, I wore it for a bunch of games and a ton of trainings. It was probably over 100 hours in the Tiempo 9 before I moved over, or I guess back to the Phantom series from a game perspective. So the Tiempo 9 was like a huge part of my 2021 and 22 seasons. And I just, something about it, man, it wasn't perfect for me. Whereas, yes, the break-in time for the Copa Pure 3 was a little bit worse in terms of time until the point where I didn't feel pain. But the Copa in terms of comfort is really hard to beat. This is like, it's really, really comfy. So I'd probably give the Copa the win here for the comfort, just like objective comfort piece. Now, in terms of performance, this is a pretty easy one for me. I love the Tiempo in terms of performance. It's a lot lighter than the Copa in a relatively significant manner. Like, this is not only the lightest Tiempo, I don't know compared to the Tiempo 10, I can't remember, but the Tiempo 9 was at the time was the lightest weight Tiempo they'd ever created. It's remarkably lightweight for an all leather football boot, similar to things like a Mizuno Morelia too. But again, you talk about like the sole plate of the Tiempo, I would take every day over the Morelia 2 sole plate, things like that. So in terms of performance, Tiempo is going to win out for me pretty handily. Now, in terms of design, I think, again, colorways aside for each one of these, I think this is going to be where you really have to decide for yourself, like what you like better. I'm kind of more keen on the Tiempo design. I think it's more beautiful. The swooshes are in really cool places. I really like the Tiempo logo here on the back. So this Tiempo logo just looks really, really cool there. And the fact that it sort of, I don't know, kind of molds into the Tiempo logoing there and then into the swoosh just looks really nice. And obviously this colorway is insane. But more than that, I just think the design of the Tiempo just looks a little bit better compared to the Copa. The Copa just feels a little bland to me. And maybe it's like a swoosh versus 3 stripes design thing. Like maybe the Nike swoosh just aesthetically in my brain hits the nerve. I don't know. I don't want to dive into that piece of it, but it's like the Tiempo just looks better for me. So in terms of lace area, this is also going to go to the Copa. I think this sort of knit material is super soft. I like that it doesn't have this rim area is really annoying. It sort of digs into your the bottom of your, or I guess the top of your ankle area, whereas this just feels so premium and so nice on feet. And right around your ankle area, it's really soft. There's no structure to this, so it just kind of sort of sits flush to your ankle. And this lacing system is absolutely excellent. I also really like this little pad here, and other brands are starting to do this as well, where they're putting kind of a little bit of memory foam or some sort of padding right in that sweet spot where you hit a volley or something like that. And I think it works really, really nicely. So lace area is going to go to the Copa. Now, in terms of X Factor, this is a tough one because the Tiempo Legend 9 doesn't really exist anymore. So theoretically, you could argue the X Factor has to go to the Tiempo because not only is this the last leather Tiempo, but it's also the last K leather Tiempo. It's not like they moved from K leather over to calfskin or something else, and then they went totally synthetic. So this, in my opinion, kind of wins out in terms of X Factor. I do think the Copa is a really, really great option, though, and I think this might be a tie situation because this, in a market where, let's for argument's sake, yes, Mizuno is getting more popular, but if you look at sort of the big 3 brands, this is the last leather, just general comfort kind of control boot in that market, because the Tiempo competes with now the King and this. And I think most people are going to, well, I would say pretty much everybody is going to pick this if they're in the market for that style of boot. Whereas if you rewind a couple years to when we had this one, and we had, I think it was Copa Pure 1 at the time, or whatever was right before that one, it was maybe a little bit of a closer conversation. And I think that's where it gets complicated. So I think I'm going to give a tie for the X Factor. So that puts us at Tiempo has, let's see, a tie. And then Tiempo has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a tie. So 6 points. The Copa has 1, 2, and a tie. So 3 points. I think you guys could see this coming. This is a comparison that, for me, the Tiempo wins out for sure, unless you fit in this boot really, really well, or you just don't want the K leather vibe, on top of the fact that Tiempo Legend 9s are really hard to get now. But overall, I think the Tiempo Legend 9 is and was a better product, and it just did more things better, including design elements, performance, and all that stuff. So, okay, hashtag Wear Your Boots Wednesday. You can submit your Wear Your Boots Wednesday, your time, wherever it is in the world. You put a photo of you in the boots, whether it's a full body shot or you just looking down at your feet. And I want your feet in the boots. I want them laced up, and that's all I care about. Wear Your Boots Wednesday, hashtag Wear Your Boots Wednesday, and then tag me in the story, and I will repost you. You have been entered once I have reposted you. So that's how it all works. We had a pretty easy one this week. We had, I think, over 50% were Alpha 2s, which is insane. Alpha 1 and Alpha 2s. Absolutely awesome. So people are loving their Mizuno Alphas, which I totally get because it's an amazing boot. But Luis Pedro Costa, 24, had a pair of leather Pele 1970s, which are super interesting. Weren't really that popular, but he's got a pair and they're very unique. You don't really see these on the market anymore. And I am a really big fan of the way that, I saw these and I was like, oh, that's definitely the winner. Unless somebody comes out with something insane. The leather Pele 1970s, I'll throw some, you'll see photos up on screen of them, but they're so cool. They're so cool. So Luis Pedro Costa, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you and for the photos that you sent over. Because those 1970s, I'm pretty sure that they're 1970s. Correct me if I'm wrong, fam, please. Performance breakdowns. Now, I want to go through Tekela really quick. So this is a football boot in terms of performance that is really, really remarkable. It's not going to be, how do I say this? I think the dynamic touch tech was a massive surprise in terms of how good it was, because I think the 442 is basically the same material, but they've made this a little bit more robust. It's got a little bit more padding to it, so it feels like what it kind of should be. Whereas I do feel like the 442 Elite is a incredibly soft, budget-friendly football boot that's going to fit pretty much everybody. And for me, the dynamic touch tech with the little kind of grip elements on the top, this is such a cool and refreshing, different model than we have really in the control category. It's different from what hybrid touch is trying to be. Hybrid touch is a lot more elasticy, so it's a lot more, it really wraps your foot super tightly, and it's very succinct and it's very precision oriented, where I feel like this is really geared towards kind of control and comfort. And then you have the Phantom 6, which is very much grip and strike elements and things like that. So it's really cool. I feel like now that we don't have a knit-based Phantom and a knit-based Tekela, and then the Predator is obviously its own thing, and then the SKX, also in that kind of control power boot category, is also basically is another knit football boot. And it's really cool to see that they went, hey, we're going to do something kind of like Adidas, but we're going to do it in a really, really cool New Balance way. And I love that. These are ridiculously comfortable. Like these have to be up there for boot of the year, because I would imagine that these are going to end up in the top 10 for sure. Depends on if they'll make it into the top 5, because there's been some ridiculous boots out this year. I am already screaming from the rooftops about these because I love the Tekela version 4 Plus, but the fact that they've now also just not only in the broader category, they've gone, hey, we've got this really thin leatherette like material for the 442. Sole plate's kind of meh, but it's more of, it's a lower price point, etc. We have our really super lightweight responsive knit speed boot in the Furon. And then now, instead of basically having the same upper and just a slightly different shape of the New Balance Furon and the New Balance Tekela, we now have something unique and different, which I love. So New Balance smashed it out of the park with these. They perform. The touch is beautiful. Like, dude, these, oof, man, super class. The other one that I wanted to give a shout out to is the Mizuno Morelia 2 update. there is a remarkable update in the heel area, the suede. This suede heel liner in this area feels incredible. It feels like this boot, this is like the final boss of Morelia 2. I feel like whatever else they're going to do to this football boot in the future without naming it something completely different because they've totally altered something about it, this feels like the final boss because it's got all the best things of every football. It's got the full super premium soft K leather. It performs, it fits perfectly out of the box, and they've nailed the heel area. I cannot tell you how happy I was to know that they put the DNA heel on the regular Morelia 2. When I heard about the Morelia 2 getting updated, I was like, man, I'm a little nervous. Got to be honest with you. Mizuno does those little updates, but sometimes they're just not enough. This boot. And funny and also exciting for you guys and for me is that these, because they are a proper update with real changes, even though the name's the same, these can go into the Boot of the Year competition. So expect these to be basically, I don't know if I want to go this far quite yet. I would probably put these top 5 already. They are everything we love about the Morelia 2, just that little bit better. Just that in the ways that really matter. And the last thing I'll say, these little rivets, the lack of rivets that don't exist anymore, the little rivets literally don't matter. You're not going to, I mean, I'll tell you more with more testing, but that area of the football boot is basically the same. And if you text me or you DM me or you comment on this video and you tell me that you can tell a difference in the weight between this Morelia 2 and the previous generation Morelia 2, get out of my face. No, you can't. They are indistinguishable from each other on feet. On a scale, sure, whatever. But your feet are not precision weight measuring tools. Pro versus retail models. This one popped up. So this was going to be part of the section about notable boots resurfacing, but Boots Not Dead posted an unbelievable pair of CR7 match issued Superflies. These are ridiculous. Like crazy ridiculous. Superfly 5, I believe it was. Yes. Superfly 5. Because they have the Vapor 11 sole plate. So Superfly 5. In one of the rarest colorways, it looks like a rainbow diamond. I don't even know what they were called. I don't even care what I'll put it up on screen. I don't even care what they're called. But holy moly, this is a beautiful boot not only, but a couple things we can see from the photos is that, number one, CR7 has narrow-ass feet if you look at the insole. And number two is the collar, which we all knew. He basically wore that sort of the original collar from the Superfly 4 was like that big. It's like as big as my freaking hand. And he wore a much shorter collar on that boot as well as the Superfly 5s and 6s, etc. on all of his ones. Now he's finally in Vapors, which everybody knew he wanted to do it in the first place. But this shortened collar, CR7 match issued boots, I don't think he actually wore these ones, but man, these are beautiful. So in terms of pro and retail models, this is also a boot that's going to be custom fit to his foot. So if you are somebody who, in terms of pro and retail, you'll notice that the shape of these boots is going to be slightly different. I can't tell really from the photos in which areas, but the shape would be slightly different. And the collar is going to be different. The insole is going to be different. And I would imagine that the way that sole, like I would honestly say for a guy like CR7, they probably have, because of the way that Vapor 11 and Superfly 5, the sole plate was really unique. It was same on the Flyknit Ultra, that you sort of sunk into the boot and it sort of had these little areas where it almost felt like each knuckle of your toes would sort of sink in perfectly, particularly if you had the right foot shape for it. I'm not quite the perfect foot shape. I have quite a bit wider feet than what those boots really handled. And so it feels a little awkward for me, but I know people who are like, this is the greatest thing I've ever had, because it literally feels like you're sinking into the boot and it just makes it so much lower to the ground, etc. That's all to say, I would imagine, and I'd maybe guess, that he actually has a custom mold of the underside of his foot to make sure that that sole plate fits him like this perfectly. So really interesting changes to be made to that boot. They are absolutely sensational looking. My pair is right there. That's not a CR7 colorway. That's the ice colorway. But yeah, very, very cool. Superfly 5s. Boot culture and trends. We are going to just talk today about leather. So the trend of going away from leather. And I'm going to put this in the context of the X-Fly, DS Lite X-Fly 6. I've said X-Fly 4 and X-Fly 5 for so long. X-Fly 6 feels really awkward coming out of my mouth. It's a very big deal because moving away from K-leather, obviously we spoke about last week, ASICS and Mizuno moving away from K-leather. They're following the trends of the brands like Nike, like Puma, and Adidas. For context, the last Puma K-leather football boot was the King Platinum 21 back in 2021. And that was, I think, widely known and widely renowned as the worst application of a K-leather upper anyone has ever seen. They were absolutely atrocious football boots. No one bought them, and then they went synthetic. Adidas still have the Copa Mundial. That is, I believe, still K-leather, although that will probably go to a calfskin leather that's updated and feels really good, probably pretty similar to the Mania and some of the Predator remakes that have come out. I don't think they'll ever go away from like a classic even calfskin leather like that, but they still are K-leather as far as I know. And then the Nike Premier 3 that had K-leather wasn't great K-leather, so it wasn't treated very well, but the 2023 Premier 3 that doesn't exist anymore, that was the last one. ASICS obviously had the DS Lite X-Fly 5, which was their last leather boot in the Japan market other than the C3, but the C3 is like very, very niche, doesn't come out that often, and is like a totally different product. And then Mizuno obviously has quite a few leather football boots. So I wanted to dive really quickly into why this is happening. And I believe, this is a personal belief and also an understanding of how these businesses work, is that a lot of this, yes, comes down to money. A lot of it comes down to budgets, trying to cut costs and make more money. That's why they're going away from expensive materials and boosting the prices up so they can stretch that gap. You make more money, more margin, etc. But I wanted to dive into a couple different things that maybe are a little bit, they might be obvious to you, they might not. But for those who this isn't obvious for, I wanted to give you an idea other than shouting from the rooftops that like brands are unfair because they're going away from this thing that you shouldn't go away from, because kangaroos are super prevalent here and people get hired to go and shoot them and kill them. So we might as well use that hide and stuff. That, if that's your opinion, amazing. I tend to share an opinion close to that, at least for K-leather, but it is really expensive to treat and to maintain and do all that stuff. The first piece is ethical concerns about animal welfare. This is a pretty obvious one. Ethical concerns about kangaroo welfare in this particular instance. A lot of them are on the hype train of, I think, people who are more generally animal conscious and animal welfare conscious. These are people maybe who think poorly about hunting now, who might actually be fully vegan and who really stay away from animal products in general. But that's one big reason, is ethical concerns. So people are staying away from K-leather, and generally people are moving away from animal products because of a concern, or these types of people, I should say, are moving away because of ethical concerns. The second one is changing consumer expectations. The younger generations, from my parents, my grandparents, to my parents, to me, to now the sort of the next generation, which I would put in maybe the high school kids that are playing footy now, the 14 to 18-year-olds. A lot of these younger generations are much more focused on eco-friendly stuff like ethically sourced and sustainable materials. things like that. Again, I'm not making any judgments on whether you think that's right or wrong. I'm simply just saying these are reasons why brands are moving away. And so a changing and a younger and younger and a slightly different consumer is going to need a different product. Just like you can't, for instance, if you look at a Ford truck in 1970 versus a Ford truck now, the Ford truck now has all types of safety features and isn't a manual. It's an automatic, and it's got a massive screen in the middle where it's got the kind of tablet and all the seat heaters and all these things that the 1970s truck didn't have. Yes, some of those updates are really great for humanity, period, like a safety feature. Some of these things are things that sort of the newer generation of consumer really values and likes, like a big screen, Apple CarPlay, things like that. The next one is advancements in synthetic materials. So as K-leather has kind of stayed the same because kangaroos haven't really been any different in the last 100 years of producing football boots, synthetic materials like knit, like silky wrap from ASICS, other mesh-based synthetic materials, we think about vapor posit uppers, things like that, or things like the Puma Ultra. As those get better and better and better, and as you move towards that silky wrap feeling, or as you move towards whatever, you get the same result and outcome of having K-leather without the actual animal product, which, number one, goes back to money. It's less expensive to produce because you only produce it or develop it once, and then you can use it forever and in a ton of different applications. So advancements in synthetic materials obviously have really, really helped. And it's, kicked off with synthetic boots like the Vapor One and things like that. Then we move into legal and regulatory pressures. So again, my feelings about this aside a little bit first, states like California banning K-leather means that brands like Uno Zero, brands like ASICS, brands like Nike aren't shipping a third of their entire catalog, basically, right? You have, at least now, let's assume that they had the Tiempo, they had the Phantom series boot, and then they had the Vapor and Superfly series. That's kind of three main silos. And then you have the Premier. So you put the Premier in there and you take out the 2K leather football boots, that is 50% of your potential in the market completely gone. And so you move to a synthetic material, and all of a sudden you've got more at bats in that same market. So personally, I think California is a bit unhinged, but that's my own personal opinion. I think it's, banning K-leather when every other state in America has basically been like, what are you talking about? But that's also what makes California unique, and they like to think they're special. So finally is marketing and brand image. Now, I think this is interesting because I'm a huge fan of brand building and business building and marketing. But the other four, ethical concerns, change in consumer, advancements in synthetic material, legal and regulatory pressure, all these things are going to weigh positively and negatively on a brand. And so when they're trying to hit a new target customer, they're trying to build maybe a different brand image. Who knows? Nike may be thinking to themselves like, yo, we want to be this like new age eco-friendly brand. It's going to take a while for them to get there, but that's sort of maybe that's the thing that they want to go for. And they're like, look, we use synthetic materials and we're way better about the environment and we use less waste and et cetera, et cetera. If that's the brand image they're going for, then the reverse engineering of that brand goal and that end in mind is staying away from leather materials. So in terms of why it's happening, I wanted to give you guys a few options of, yes, a lot of this comes down to budget. A very, very large percentage of this comes down to budgeting and trying to hike prices, pull costs down, and then you have much more margin. But there are some very compelling and interesting arguments and reasons why brands are moving away from K-leather now. And rest assured, I will be keeping all of my K-leather football boots probably forever and ever, because it's a sort of a double entendre that's also an Uno reverse card. But it's like the K-leather football boot is a dying breed, but the kangaroo is a multiplying breed in a way that's unsustainable. So interesting. Section 3, market report. I wanted to go through in this episode future boots that we might see in the next, let's call it 6 months. So quarter 3, which we're in now, quarter 4, which is October, November, December, and then January, February, March. So the next 2 and 3 quarters. See what I did there? Quarter 3, quarter 4 of 25, and then quarter 1 of 26. New products and what I would like to see. So we will probably get the new Tiempo at some point, whether it's called the Tiempo, whether it's called something else. There's been rumors about that as well. They're not going to do leather. So I would like to see something a lot closer to the Montebelluna Tiempo. Soften the Fly Touch Plus upper, make it a lot more pliable, do a better job with the shape, particularly in the toe box area. The Montebelluna Tiempos are down here. And they're actually really good for a synthetic football boot if they didn't have the Tiempo name. So that's where I would like to see whatever the Tiempo, let's call it Tiempo 11, wherever Tiempo 11 goes, make it a better shape, make it softer upper materials, and then you can kind of play around with different sole plates and stuff like that. Would I love to see this style of sole plate come back? Absolutely. That being said, Tiempo 10 sole plate, I'm not mad about it. It's okay. It's okay. We'll probably get a new Vapor at some point. I would really, really like to see 2 things happen. One is a separation of Superfly and Vapor. And number 2 is I want both of those to not be knit anymore, because you already have the Phantom series, both high and low, in a knit material. I think separating them, just like Tekela just did with the Furon, you separate those 2 things. It's just better for consumers who love the Nike products, because it gives them really interesting options, as opposed to somebody being like, I want a Vapor and I want a GX. Which one should I go for, Noah? And I'm like, whichever one fits your foot. They're basically the fucking same boot. Like, it doesn't really matter. And that's annoying, because that's just, as we've talked about in many podcasts before, it frustrates the hell out of me that they're the same materials. But I'd like to see the Vapor and Superfly not only separate in terms of Vapor, keep just raw minimalist speed boot, and then with the Superfly do crazy shit, like put a carbon plate with an air bubble and also running foam and a high cut collar and a knee brace and like whatever the hell else you want to put in it. We're probably going to see a Razor 2 at some point. So Skechers Razor 2. And I would like to see a little bit more sole plate stiffness. It's a really nice sole plate, but it's pretty basic. So I'd like to see something a little bit more stiff, a little bit more aggressive. And then I'd like to see the heel area and the mesh around the midfoot. Here we go. Right in this area here. I'd like to see that refined just a little bit. It's already a really excellent product. I really like the touch of this synthetic material, this Tasian up in the forefoot area, but I'd like to see a little bit more refinement in the midfoot and the heel area. I think it could use it just a little bit, just to make it stand out a little bit more. Because I think right now the Razor has to sit behind some of the other boots in the market. And I would imagine that F50 sales are way more than, not even the Messi ones, but just the regular F50s are more than the Skechers Razor, just because the Razor doesn't have that heritage. SKX2, do something to it. Like, do something special. Redo the sole plate. It's not very good. And then I want to see the SKX morph into something uniquely Skechers. This, yes, although there are some Nike things to it, this feels like a Skechers product. It's like, oh, cool. Like, focus on comfort, performs really, really well. And this is awesome. Whereas I do feel a lot like the SKX is, even the 1.5 edition is like, yeah, everyone knows it's basically just a Phantom GT from Nike a couple of years ago. It's kind of boring. Nah, whatever. So change that. F50 update, redo everything about the upper. Compression fit tunnel system, totally fine. Not a big deal, but get rid of that fiber touch upper. It's terrible. And then I would say that we'll probably see both a new King and a new Future, given how crap the sales numbers are. And both of those boots, the King I'm not mad about. I am a little bit kind of bored with that boot because it isn't really anything to write home about. The Future needs to die. Notable boots resurfacing. Rare Retro Boots had a custom pair of GX1 in red, black, and white online, which was very cool. I love also the graphic. Where do I have them? Oh, they're way back under here, and I've got a bunch of stuff behind me. But I love the Phantom. It actually spells Phantom on the side of the Nike ID boots. I love that. I did that with both of my pairs, both the title-winning black and pink ones, and then those insane Volt yellow and green pair. I did it with both boots because I just think the Phantom logo, like in writing, looks absolutely sick. And then Precision Soccer Shop came in with absolute bangers this week. So first is $19.99, pair 1,999 out of 2,500 of the Totti Tiempo Legend 6s, the gold ones. They are beautiful football boots, and I think these are absolutely stunning. Definitely, it's not a grail pair because I have my Totti grail pair, the black and silver ones, but the gold ones are like a bucket list pair. Like they're like I would love to get it someday, but if I don't, I don't. You know, it's not that big of a deal. And then Precision Soccer Shop also had the Superfly 5 EA Sports Edition, which is really cool, really unique. We only saw it on a couple players' feet when they existed, and those are a very cool pair of football boots as well. And in terms of stock availability and drops, it looks like with the new Nike and Adidas packs, and will be available pretty much everywhere outside of Phantom 6, oddly enough, which seems to be experiencing some holdup other than at Ultra, because Ultra has them now. And so I don't know what's going on there. Maybe it was just like a supply chain thing. Puma still has stock of literally every one of their colorways because everybody isn't buying those colors because they've come out with so goddamn many colorways. It's ridiculous. In Q1 and Q2, they came out with like 7 different colorways, including probably 15, including special edition ultras and stuff. Like, it's just ridiculous. So expect tournament round packs, expect new season packs in August, late August, probably when the season starts up again. And that's stock availability and drops. It's fairly, it seems to have cooled off just a little bit. I feel like, yeah, we got some cool new packs and stuff for the for the Women's Euros and the end of the Club World Cup. Amazing. But it's not like we are getting punched in the mouth hole because of how many colorways are coming out. Section 4, audience questions. Now, you too can ask questions at noahcavanaugh.com/podcast, and they will be entered every week, and I'll go through and pick the very best ones. Schofield asks, does the AG Phantom 6 High run narrow, or is it true to size? Narrow or true to size? Do you mean like long or true to size, or short or true to size? Narrow has to do with width. Size has to do with length. But they fit true to size. Max, can you recommend me 3 high volume toe box football boots? I would recommend the new Phantom 6. I would recommend the Tekela, and I would recommend the DS Lite X-Fly Pro 3, which, similar to this one, although in much more aggressive fashion, has a super soft and very like open toe box area. Go true to size on those unless you are somebody who likes really tight football boots. It seemed, based on this question, I would assume that you've had issues with your toes, like rubbing materials on the top. If that is you, go true to size and you'll be super comfy and you'll be able to wiggle your toes and shit like that. If you are like me and you like your boots to basically suffocate your feet, I would highly recommend going down half a size. Alexi, if you could talk to the person/team that designed a boot, which boot would you choose and what would you want to ask them? I want to know about the Superfly. I want to know about the Superfly 2 and 3 because they are so wild and out of this, like carbon fiber, moving sense stud, Tasian synthetic that was wild and no one had really ever seen anything like that before. And also, how in the hell did a boot that stiff get the thumbs up from the Nike brand? So I would really be interested in the design team, to talk to the design team of that boot. Great question. Dave, why do pros often wear FG boots on AG? Well, first of all, a lot of pros, other than if you play in America, several AG pitches in that league, both at the MLS, USL, and the third tier. Most pros don't play on AG. So when they do, let's take MLS, for example. A lot of them will wear FG football boots because they get more traction. And for a pro, having been one, you sort of hit a point where you're like, do I risk, knee, ankle injuries because I'm using a stud pattern like this on AG? Or is it a situation where I will make that calculated risk because of the extra benefit that this aggressive traction gives me when pushing off or changing directions? The other thing to consider is that the AG pitches that pros play on is like the good shit. Like, it's not your local pitch. Like Dave, who's asking this question, you probably play on a pitch that's not what the pros play on. In fact, I guarantee it's not what the pros play on, because otherwise you'd know the answer to this question. So, and that's obviously not a dig at you. It's just like they play on stuff that feels almost like, and we used to play on pitches that sort of almost felt like regular grass. They were very bouncy, lots of like almost natural movement to them, etc. Yandel, why do my WeFoot grip socks rip so easily from the big toe part? My nails are cut, but the socks seem to rip. Is this not washing them correctly? Most likely what's happening is you have a high volume toe and a low volume football boot. And so the boot is actually rubbing against the sock the sock is between your foot and your boot. And so that friction is what causes them to rub. And so, and to eventually break and to rip. So yeah, if you are drying your socks in a dryer, no. That's probably also what's causing them to rip. Always, regardless of what style of grip sock you have, whether it's the silicone or whether it's more like the WeFoot stuff, which I very much prefer, which is almost like a fabric material, like a grip fabric material, always hang dry. Always. Never, not even tumble dry. Like, do not put that anywhere near a dryer. So that's probably what's screwing you up. Yandel also asks, I'm going to need that collab with your logo. They look sick. They do look really cool. When is it dropping? Also, have you tried SR for, damn, you got hella questions. I should have deleted some of these. So the socks should be dropping hopefully soon. I have tried Pure Grip socks before, SR4U. They are very good. They are not my cup of tea though. So they're too thick for me. I like razor thin grip socks, but as just a basic sock that you can wear, that I would like wear around the house, excellent, really good quality, especially some of the newer ones. So yeah, I have nothing bad to say about them. So yeah, especially for the price point. Benji, is it worth buying an AG pair if I only play on it a couple times a year? If you can afford it, sure. But if you don't, I think it just is a question of what I answered before, which is like, if you've got a stud pattern that looks a little bit like that, then you'll be just fine. If you have a stud pattern that looks like this, then you have to take a calculated risk, and that's up to you. Angel or Angel, have you ever had a moment where a boot literally gave you a mental edge on the pitch, whether from lockdown, feel, or just how it made you move? Good question. So I would say that I'm going to sort of rephrase the question and answer it in the way that I think you want to hear, which is my preference is when a boot has all of the right performance characteristics, lockdown, fit, comfort, stud pattern, etc. But I want the boot that disappears on your foot. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to have any sort of trepidation or change in movement pattern, or it's like, ooh, that boot doesn't quite support me in the way that I want to during this type of turn or whatever. Like, the reason why Hypervenom 3, GX1, I was going to say Phantom Venom, but not really. So I would say, honestly, those two boots in particular, the reason why Hypervenom 3 I'm so obsessed with is because it ticked every single box of performance for me. It fit me perfectly. And when I played, it literally felt like it was one with my foot. That's what I'm looking for. So it's not a boot, like, to answer your question, it's not a boot of the boots giving me mental edge. Maybe when I was really young and I didn't sort of have the mind, like the elite level mindset that I do now, Totally, maybe. But I can't remember a time where it's been very obvious that I put this particular pair of boots on and I'm like, ooh, I know I'm playing well today. Because again, I rotate boots so often that it's not like I don't have that conversation in my mind. When I go out to the pitch to train with a team, or I'm at tryouts, or I'm in a game or whatever, it's what pair of boots don't I have to think about? That's really what I'm looking for. That ticks all the performance characteristics box. Angel asks, has your idea of the quote unquote perfect boot changed as you've matured as a player? No, not at all. Because what I just said is my perfect boot. It's the boot that disappears with all of the things ticked off. Great questions. Deo, what are your thoughts on wearing F50 Messi Elite on AG if I previously had an ankle injury but really want Messi boots? Well, if you really want them, go wear them. I've also said in 100 videos now that the Sprint Frame 360 sole plate is totally fine on AG, regardless of what you hear from other people. Edward, will synthetic leather be so good in the future that we'll forget about K-leather and leather boots? I say yes, but I don't. The part of that I disagree with is I don't think we'll ever forget. I think we'll be totally fine and cruisy because that's just what it's going to turn into eventually. But I don't think we're gonna ever forget the era when we had the most plush and beautiful K-leather football boots ever to exist on this planet. Edward also asks, what would you improve about the new generation Tiempo 11? I already answered that. Wow, I have not gone through these well enough. Sorry, guys. I've already answered that question in a section in the boot report. How cool is that? I should have just put this question up, but whatever. Corey, why do brands in North America limit AG releases and options when the majority of competitive footy is played on AG? Dude, if I knew the answer to this question, I would love to give it to you. I have no idea. The only thing I can think of is that pros wear FG, consumers want to be pros, so they got to tie that knot. So they got to sell them the thing that the pro wears as opposed to the thing that's actually probably better for them. That's what I would go. V asks, thoughts on the Tiempo not getting updated when the Mercurial and Phantom did? Well, the Merc is the same also. I don't know what this question is about. I don't really care if boots are asynchronous, meaning that, let's say, in a calendar year, you update the Phantom in January, you update the Tiempo in June, and then you update the, Phantom, Tiempo, Vapor in October, November. I don't really care that much. So it doesn't really matter. But to your question, they updated the Phantom and they didn't update the Merc or the Tiempo. So it's actually not updating two boots and one, if that makes sense. Eker, have you ever thought about making your own football boots? I think they'd be some of the best on the market since you probably know what most people want in a boot. I appreciate that. Thank you for the vote of confidence. I have very much thought about creating my own football boot brand, but the logistics and everything involved in creating a physical product is a lot. And developing a football boot in particular is a ton. Please do not take this as a knock on what Josh has accomplished with Pure, because it's really cool. Creating new variations of a sock is very different than creating new variations of a football boot. That's got material sourcing, so many different components, lots of money up front for sole plate lasting. Like, all of those things are really expensive, really labor intensive. They take a lot of things. Whereas, again, like, this is not a diss track at Josh, because again, I'm a fan, and I'm also a admirer of what he's accomplished. That business model is so much easier to create, and that's probably why he did it, as opposed to him trying to do an SR4U football boot. So I have thought about it, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from a business perspective. Jonathan asks, best performance AG boot suitable for wide feet. It's going to be the wide fit football boots that have AG sole plates. And right now, the biggest one I can think of that maybe recency bias, other than like a, Morelia 2 or something that's very wide and leather and whatever else. Tekela is one of them, because Tekela also comes in an HG or an MG stud pattern that's only conical studs. So Tekela is a huge option for you guys now. You guys, I'm part of this wide foot gang. What am I talking about? And what would I also say? Oh, the one that I was thinking about before, which is the Phantom 6. Honestly, wide fit, really good AG sole plate as well. So definitely go check out Tekela and Phantom 6. Enzo, is there any real difference between Mizuno Alpha Elite and Made in Japan? Yep, but they're really minimal. So if you're somebody who really loves the Alpha, but you want to not spend $320 US or whatever it is now, just buy the Elite. They're really good. They're just not going to have the same performance characteristics. So you lose out on the material of the upper is ever so slightly different. You're not going to really notice. There's not zero glide everywhere in the boot, so that changes things a little bit. And then you don't have a Carvo insert, so it's not, the sole plate isn't as snappy. So again, they're really just performance characteristics. Shape, fit, comfort, all that stuff is basically the same, and the Elites are excellent products. So don't let any, if you have a $200 budget, or if you $220 or whatever it is, and you don't want to pay $320 and you're like, I still want the Alphas, just go with the Elites. They're brilliant. They're really, really good. Emil, do you know what the new Predator Mania 24 upper is like? Are there any other boots with a similar upper feel? I do, yes. The 24 has been around since 2024. So the Predator Mania shares a lot of leather feel characteristics to the Copa Icon 2. Copa Icon 2? Yeah, Icon 2. So that's kind of the thing that I would say, if most people want a boot that's plush, comfy, fits like that leather. Obviously, the Predator Mania remakes are a little bit more premium, probably, but they are very, very on par in terms of that like leather kind of feel, which is cool. Manga Sword 8 asks, what's your least favorite position to play? Ooh. Probably winger. I know that's crazy to sound because like I played wingback, but wingback is so rewarding because you get all the passing, you get all the goalkeeper, sure, but like, yeah, okay, maybe it's goalkeeper because I'd rather play winger than goalkeeper. Yeah, anyway, good question. All right, guys, that is it for this episode of the Boot Report. Thank you for hanging with me. If you did, give me a gorilla emoji in the comment section. That is my favorite emoji. We're going to go back to that one like every 3 weeks probably. But anyway, gorilla emoji in the comment section below. Appreciate you guys being here and for listening. I will be getting the episodes up to Spotify and Apple very, very soon. I'm just waiting for a couple things from my side of things. So I need to sort some things, sorting a bunch of things out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As always, be awesome. Take care. See y'all in the next video.